What is up, guys? You're back here today with Mastersage. Today, it's story time. I'll be going through the history and lore of the game Paladins. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar with the game, Paladins is a 5 versus 5 hero shooter game developed back in 2018 by Evil Mojo. Now, quick disclaimer, guys, this is purely my interpretation and opinion based off the lore that I found through research and investigation online. Now, with that out of the way, guys, let's jump straight into it.
Or anybody! Cowards do that and that ain't you! You're better than that!
Alright, guys, first up on the timeline of the Paladins was an event known as the Dragon Scourge. So this was the first event to appear on the timeline in the history of the Paladins. So this was in the beginning before the Paladins were even around, in a time of immense chaos. There were dragons with incredible destructive power that basically terrorized the land, basically the rulers of the land in general. These incredible beings waged war on any who stood before them, leading to the rise of an ancient civilization that was known as the Warders. Now, the Warders basically came into being as a group of powerful mages that dedicated themselves to the taming of these powerful dragons to still the chaos, obviously trying to take control of the realm and bring peace to the land. Alright, before we get onto the second milestone on the timeline, I'd like to just make note, there are a few gaps in this timeline, like the lore I don't think was put together all that well for the Paladins, as there are a few gaps and a few important milestones that you would have thought would have been, interesting and really significant that kind of were just left out. And you'll kind of notice this as I go through the timeline. So it's not me trying to just jump over it and rush through. It's actually gaps in the timeline itself that don't really have much of an explanation. For an example, there is not really much explanation with regards to the creation or the uniting of the Paladins and for what reason they were originally united. I have a few suggestions and thoughts about why they would have come together, and I'll put my 2 cents in as we go along, but basically just bear that in mind as we go along. So let's move on to the second milestone. Alright, so the second milestone is what is known as the First Scourge. This was a time when war was waged within the land by the goblin race as they encroached on the realm. So from what it sounds like is that the goblins came from somewhere outside of the realm and basically made their way in to wage war and take over. The next section in this timeline just states that the Paladins were in need of assistance against the goblins and created what is known as the Stagella, a loyal race of stone people who fought alongside the Paladins to defeat the goblins. So obviously they brought together powerful magic to create people from stone. Basically that's all it tells you about the Stagella. Once the Paladins defeated the goblin race, the Stagella then returned to their slumber, having fulfilled their oath to Valera. So again, a few gaps in the timeline. At this point, you would have to have gone into the character lore to find out that Valera was actually one of the leaders of the Paladins at that time. The Stagella were basically a race of stone people that were created, which are loyal, and they basically live up to their vow, and basically the only way to break that vow is through death. So they're very loyal warriors, basically. The Paladins, from what it sounds like, came together and created a group of strong, powerful individuals who vowed to protect the land against the goblins, to defend the realm, so to speak. So I believe that's why they came to being, or it's why they would have come together, but there's not much information around why the Paladins actually came together or what event sparked the rise of the Paladins themselves. Alright, and that leads to the third milestone here on the timeline, which would be the Second Scourge. Now, not much is actually known about what happened during the Second Scourge. It is very vague. And this is actually part of the history, almost like history itself was lost to the Scourge itself, and not much was documented or kept throughout this time, in which makes sense when you read up what the Second Scourge was all about. So the Second Scourge was basically the second onslaught by the goblins. Obviously, after their first defeat, the goblins made a second attempt to actually take over the realm, this time being a lot more successful than the first. So basically, all that is known at this time, what happened in the actual battle, is that the people of the realm were forced up into the mountains, where they held their defenses from fortresses and temples that are obviously already up there in the mountains. Now, it sounds like obviously the goblins came back with an unrelenting force and basically pushed back the realm and forced them back into the mountains, which obviously sounding like they're being more successful than that of their first scourge. This relentless invasion, though, of the goblins also laid destruction to some of the other areas within the realm, such as your forests and your smaller tribes within the realm. Now, obviously, the realm being a place of immense magic, an ancient forest spirit was summoned, and this was Grover. So that's where Grover comes from. So he's an ancient nature spirit, basically within the forest. So he is a manifestation of nature's wrath, who was then summoned because of this destruction of the forest by the goblins. Like I said, the smaller tribes, one of them being the Red River Orcs, was also attacked during the encroachment of the goblins. This led to the lightning-gifted Grok to unleash his fury upon the goblins on behalf of his tribe. So that's where the Grover and Grok came into this. But yeah, from what it sounds like, guys, is that the second scourge was basically a massive onslaught where they just laid waste to the realm, destroyed towns, forests, everything in their wake. And like I said, this led to Grok rising up against them, as well as the nature's spirit, Grover, being summoned to actually take on the goblin encroachment. Once again, the timeline kind of just jumps. Not much is said after that. But like I said, in the last one, it kind of makes a bit more sense. Almost like history itself was lost and not much information was held about the second scourge. But the next milestone on the timeline jumps straight to what they call the Golden Age. Now, the Golden Age is basically where the entire realm falls into peace and prosperity, you know, without any further need for the defense. The Paladins disband. You know, everything just goes to a natural state of bliss. Like, everything's happy, everything's going great, you know. But this is where things start to actually go south in the timeline. The Paladins obviously disbanded, like I said, but then the protection of the realm was left to the newly founded Magistrate, which is now being led by the former Paladin, Grand Magister Khan. All right. So along with some of his ex-paladins and some powerful sorcerers, the Magistrate basically took control of the realm and basically became the new protectors of the realm. Now, during this time of peace, different races came from across the lands, from everywhere, all around, to come and like basically settle within Crosswind Hold, which is, I'm assuming, the like holds up in the mountain where they were after the like where they settled after the second scourge. Now, obviously, all these places came to coexist together and, you know, live in peace. However, some noble houses started to rise up and gain power in order to govern their respective regions. So obviously, almost like taking control, like mayors in a sense, of your different regions within Crosswind Hold. Now, during this time, however, there was a fortress siege that was undertaken by a warlord. Now, this warlord decided the best way to breach the fortress was with walking bombs. However, the warlock that was the underling to this warlord decided to assist and accidentally brought one of the larger bombs to life, which was the creation of Bomb King, actually. Now, Bomb King was slightly delusional and decided to lay waste to the entire army himself, basically destroying the warlord's army completely, single-handedly. And now, after doing so, Bomb King set out on one of his delusional quests to go and visit all the lands that he believed to be under his rule. So, yeah, Bomb King being a bit of a psycho himself. But that is it for the Golden Age. The timeline seems to just jump straight into the next thing from there. So the next timeline being the next milestone being the discovery of crystals. Now, I'm not sure if this is within the Golden Age or is this what comes after the Golden Age, My opinion, I think this is what's happening during the Golden Age. All this happens during this time, but it is not very clear as to what the timeline is. There's no actual dates and stuff. Obviously, they didn't create a calendar for the Paladins. But yeah, in my opinion, this is happening all during the Golden Age. So this is just one of the next significant milestones. It's not exactly the next period of time, but this was the discovery of crystals. Now, it says in this timeline piece that it was centuries later. Now, is it still peace and prosperity centuries later? Does not say. However, centuries later, there was a breakthrough in magic through the discovery of crafted crystals. Now, the magistrate formed an organization known as Deep Works, which is an organization basically put together to advance the study or research within crystal magic. The magistrate called on certain individuals such as the runic scholar Torvald and the dwarven master mechanic Barak. So that's the entrance of two of these great characters in the game, who are obviously now part of the magistrate. So Torvald now, during this time, created a runic gauntlet, which is obviously his weapon in the game, and Barak is just said to have crafted several different machines, one of which being a jetpack wing and a standard goblin mining suit. Right? Now, the jetpack wings were actually given to Dragos, who is a wingless wyvern underling to a dragon, so granting him the ability to fly. So that's where Dragos' wings actually came from, his jetpack. It was actually developed by Barak. Then the mining suit was actually given to all goblin miners, one of which of them actually being Ruckus. Now, that part also kind of brings to part, like, goblin miners. Were they defeated once again and enslaved as miners? Did the goblins just come to live in peace as well as miners? Was it just a different tribe of goblins that came to live within the realm? No mention of it. From what I think it would be was that at some point the goblins were defeated near the end of the Second Scourge with the help, obviously, of Grok and Grover. Yeah, and then these goblins were basically put to work in the mines after their crimes against the realm. But, like I said, that's my 2 cents in there. No actual proof or evidence of that being the actual case. Barak actually also helps an orphaned knowledge-seeking Skadron named Talus, who's also looking to uncover his inborn aptitude and his true potential. So Barak basically takes in Talus, who's an orphan of the Skadron. At this time also, the latest entrance is Vivian. Right, we'll know Vivian. She is a magistrate officer who actually schemes her way into Deep Works and becomes one of the commanding security officers. Now, she does this in order to actually repurpose the crystals for combat. So now, basically, this creates a completely new standard for weaponry within the realm, obviously creating a higher level of power and destructive capability with these crystals. This sets a new standard for crystal weaponry within the realm. Okay. Barak then, obviously not happy with this event, decides to leave Deep Works as he believes that the power of the crystals is now going to be misused for evil. As time passes, the popularity and potency of these crystals starts to increase, so word obviously gets around and people start getting more access to them. And yeah, the crystals just become stronger with the more research that comes into play with these crystals. This obviously leads to the abuse of power for selfish gain, as obviously people start realizing they can use these crystals for selfish means that are not possibly the legal methods within the realm at that point in time. Which the magistrate, obviously concerned with this, decides to ban the use of crystal magic for all common folk within the realm. Now, this leads to several raids where they break into houses and stuff like that, and basically ransacking the entire realm, reclaiming all the crystals from the commoners and taking them back in the belief that this will still the chaos and restore peace to the realm. Obviously, because people got a bit riley and wild up with the use of these new powerful crystals that they could use, however they wanted, from what it sounds like. Now, obviously, to help still the peace, the noble houses were called on by the magistrate to assist. One of these houses was House Aiko, who answers by sending their heir to the Ruby Throne, which was actually Liane. Leanne joins to obviously show that she is a capable heir to the throne and to actually show off her abilities. At this point, Khan, her bodyguard, personal advisor, and general of House Aiko, decides he will join to honor his oath and fulfill his obligation as the Primus to House Aiko. Fernando also decides to join in to help because he is a squire turned knight who excitedly answers the magistrate's call by taking up arms on behalf of his deceased master. So Fernando, who's obviously knight, passed away, not sure if it was with natural causes or during battle, doesn't say, kind of just breezes over that one. Fernando decides to take his master's armor and self-dubbed himself a knight and take to arms on behalf of his royal house. So that's pretty cool. So Fernando joins in the fight there. The magistrate continues to fuel Vivian's research, though. This ultimately leads to the creation of some powerful weaponry. So a powerful weapon and battle suit were created by Vivian during this time, which actually proved effective in the hands of none other than Ash, who actually now pilots the armor and the weapon. This is also where Victor and Strix meet Ash in the, obviously as Ash joins in the fight by joining in the ranks, so to speak, with his new battle suit and armor. This is where we move on to the next milestone in this timeline, which follows shortly after the discovery of crystals. So obviously not everyone will agree with Grand Magister Khan's vision that crystals aren't for everyone and that they're being reclaimed from the common folk. This is where people started rallying behind Valera. Now Valera stood with a vision, as that magic is for all, the crystal power is for everyone, you can't take it and reclaim it for certain individuals. This is where she developed and created the resistance. Now obviously people banded behind her and stood with her in her belief against Grand Magister Khan. Now obviously, so war breaks out now as the resistance and the magistrate clash heads, and this puts a halt to the research of the crystal power and the crystal magic. The two sides actually clash in an epic battle, but due to the overwhelming access to resources and wealth, the magistrate easily defeat the resistance. But it is during this battle where Ash, wielding the experimental flak cannon, actually defeats Terminus as he falls to the magistrate. Now again, it just jumps over the fact that Terminus is actually Stagella. Now, the two Stagella in-game is Inara and Terminus. From what we know, they went back to their eternal slumber. Now, when were they brought back? When did Valera actually call upon them again? This is just brushed over and not actually explained. But yeah, Terminus was actually in this battle and was actually defeated and killed by Ash, funny enough. From what I believe, Terminus actually fell to the magistrate, and they used crystal magic to bring him back, which is why in game you see Terminus the way he is, with a crystal shoved into his chest, and he's able to actually explode or regain himself after death. That would explain that, but again, that's just my 2 cents. So after their defeat, the resistance is obviously forced to retreat. Now obviously after the fall of Terminus, this enrages fellow Stagella Inara, who abandons her vows, erasing her reluctance to fight. So Inara joins in, and obviously this changes the tides of war, as the Stagella are an immensely powerful people. But yeah, this obviously changes the tides of war as she joins the fight. This shifts the tides of battle because more people actually start to join. The insight in their earlier loss actually inspires people to actually join in and stand with the resistance against the magistrate, as members of the realm unite from all over. Even Tyra, one of the magistrate's commanders, abandons the magistrate, returning to her homeland to join the resistance. Now, this is where it mentions that Barak actually did join, when he left Epoch, actually did join the resistance, being one of the first to join after leaving. Pip, Evie, and Koga at this time also join in and cause Cassie to follow later on. Following his dwarven mentor, Talus actually joins in the battle as well, just looking to prove his abilities as a Skadron. Barak obviously brings with him his knowledge of crystal weaponry, looking to obviously aid the resistance in their fight against the Magistrate. A famous adventurer agrees with the resistance cause and decides to join, known as Sha-Lin, who's followed by Ying. War wages on as the destruction encroaches on the forests of the realm once again. Basically, the forests and everything start getting caught up in the battle between these two powerful sides. However, this time, once again, nature fights back. The Lepori flee deeper into the forest. Obviously, it's the people that live within the forest. It doesn't give much about the Lepori, just that they were there and they fled. But they flee back into the forest, except for one, a Lepori named Moji and her familiar Po Lee. Determined to protect her home, Moji awakens the great nature spirit Grover and allies with the fairies of the Summer Court. So obviously Grover, nature's wrath, decides to step up once again to defend the natural forest of the realm with Moji. Now obviously, like I said, she did approach the Summer Court, and this is where the fairy Willow joins the fight to defend the natural realm and the forest. The threat actually spreads far and wide, reaching as far as the island of the Skadron, which is obviously just off from the mainland. So the war actually spread that far that even the islands surrounding the realm were affected by its wake. The defender of the Skadron Island, Makoa, leaves for the mainland to join the fight to protect the natural world, along with Grok, who fights on behalf of his tribe once again. This is basically a very brushed over, very undetailed expanse of civil war. Is basically the Magistrate reclaim the crystals, the resistance starts up, they battle them, get defeated, more people join in, and the natural forces come in. That's the overview basically of this. There's not much about the battles or anything in it. There's a lot of gaps and there's a lot of interesting information and detail that could have actually gone in here, but they decided not to. But yeah, let's move on to the next milestone. Alright, so the next milestone, I feel, isn't the next step in the timeline, but is more of an explanation of what happened during the previous timeline, so during this timeline of the Civil War. So this is the milestone known as Koga's Revenge, and you'll understand more why I believe it happened during the Civil War as I continue. So, Koga was actually part of the Thousand Hands Guild, which is a group of bandits that serve under their leader and former nobleman, Zin. So it's not really specified why he left his noble house, but all it states is that Zin created the guild after leaving his noble house. Koga was actually taken in by Zin as his second disciple after Zin was betrayed by his first disciple, Sha-Lin, who was betrayed and fled the guild. Zin taught Koga his signature flame projectile technique, which is obviously how you get the similar fighting style with that with Koga's flame projectile as well as Zin's flame projectile. However, Koga's stay did not last very long, as he was actually betrayed within the guild, which resulted in the guild turning against him. Koga fled, but before doing so, made a promise to return and exact his revenge. This is when Sky actually joins the guild around this time, after leaving her noble house for a life of freedom. Now, Zin picked up on her ruthlessness, which caught his attention, and he took her in as his now third disciple. After an unknown period of time, though, which is weird, again, it just skips over these things, I jumped straight into the part where Koga actually returned to bring about his revenge on Zin. Now, Sky, it doesn't give much here, it just says Sky intervenes. So it seems like Koga tried to actually kill Zin, and Sky intervened. And once again, in classic fashion, all they state is that not much is known about the encounter, other than that there were no casualties. So obviously there was this epic fight between Koga, Sky, and Zin in this epic battle to try and exact revenge and protect their master, and no one died, but then it seems like it was just done. After this is when it is said that Koga actually went to go and join the resistance. Now, as you saw during the Civil War, I explained that Koga actually joined around the same time as Pip and Evie. So this was obviously around the time that happened. Um, Sky was immensely attracted to the pay grade of the magistrates and decided to side with them during the Civil War. Sharlan and Ying joined the resistance at this time, and Zin offered his guild up as services as hireable mercenaries, caring only about the money, not who they fight for. So you can see this happen during the time of the Civil War, where Zin offered up basically each side could hire mercenaries, doesn't matter who they fight for, just as long as they get paid. Sky actually did side with the resistance, so she left the guild and went to the resistance in search of a better pay grade. So that's what happened with regards to Koga's revenge. Alright, so the next milestone on this Paladins timeline journey is the destruction of the village of Ceres. From here, these stories, I'm not sure where they fit into the actual timeline itself or what time frame they happened within, but these are some of my favorite pieces of lore within the realm, as they provide a bit more of a story and a bit more of a character description around where the characters came from, how they came to be. So the destruction of Ceres talks about how all towns have their darkness within them, but none like the sound of Ceres. So the village of Ceres has a portal to the Abyss realm within it. Now, this isn't just some simple portal. This portal actually demands sacrifice in the form of human life. Now, around the time that the sacrifice was demanded, the magistrate stepped in to obviously select the sacrifice. A young woman named Abby was chosen by Corvus, who's actually the son of Grand Magister Khan. Now, Abby accepted her fate, but her sister Sarah fought back against the magistrate, unable to accept the magistrate's decision to sacrifice her sister. She wasn't successful as she was apprehended by the magistrate, and then Abby was scheduled to be sacrificed the next day. Now, obviously this infuriated Sarah, and she turned to look for help. She went to the Church of the Eternal Pyre to look for these answers, begging for a way to save her sister. The hunger of the abyss grew during this time, however, stronger than ever before, no longer just seeking a simple soul to satisfy itself, but now wanting a body to possess itself with, and actually bring the power of the abyss into the realm. Now, while obviously this went on, it doesn't explain what much happened. It just basically jumps straight into the next part, saying that the abyss actually surged, pulsating into the realm and consuming Abbey, causing a massive explosion that destroyed the entire village. The Eternal Pyre at the same time fled, consuming Sarah, obviously who was there looking for the answers, and granting her sanctuary during this time. Sarah was then reborn with a newfound purpose of destroying the abyss. Sarah was reborn as the Angel Furia, Vengeance Incarnate. So that's where that came from. Now, it doesn't even go into it, but this is a pretty obvious one. Abby was then consumed by the abyss and completely possessed, leading to the introduction of the character Ceres. Now, for me, that's a pretty obvious one. I'm pretty sure that's what happened. It doesn't actually say where Ceres came from, if Abby became Ceres, but it makes complete sense that Furia, Vengeance Incarnate was Sarah, the sister to Abby, who is now the possessed abyssal Ceres. Alright, so I don't know, do you guys agree with that? I think it makes sense. If you don't, let me know your story down below and what you think may have been the case within that scenario. Alright, but anyways, moving on to the next timeline milestone was the fight of Ascension Peak. Now, Ascension Peak was a place where Genos originally ascended into the cosmos centuries before, also during the Second Scourge, funny enough. Now, again, it doesn't even mention this during the Second Scourge. You could have put that in, but it's mentioning it now, so I guess it's fine. A following of monks remained at the peak, awaiting the return of Genos. Now, obviously, centuries passed by, and yeah, after the dissolution of the Sentinels, which apparently was some like a war-born kind of group of people, the monks started to disband. Not many of them stayed around. People actually gave up hope, and after centuries, you can understand why. Now, one of these Sentinels that actually had been disbanded was a character by the name of Buck, who turned to a life as a monk to obviously try and, you know, find peace after a life as in the military. Genos then returns to encounter this lone monk who still sits and awaits his return. Now, Genos shares with Buck what he's learnt from the cosmos, the great power as well as a great darkness that is still to come. Word spreads to the Ruby Throne about the return of Genos. So the General and Primus Khan believes that the power of Genos will help aid them in the civil war. So he obviously then heads out to try and recruit Genos to the cause, to try and bring Genos in to defeat the resistance. Now, he is tasked with this from the Air Lian to actually bring in the Descended God. This begins the siege of Ascension Peak. I'm not sure why, if you're going to recruit the Descended God, you're going to attack, but anyway, that's how they decided to go about it. So Genos refuses Khan in his attempt to join and actually lays waste to Khan's army, defeating Khan in the process. Khan then simply returns to continue fighting for House Ico, and Genos decides to turn to the resistance to help them to achieve their first small victory within the Civil War. Genos and Buck then have joined the resistance at this point in time. Then it just simply jumps and skips ahead again to the next milestone, which is the Warder's return. Now, obviously, we remember the Warders from the Dragon Scourge milestone within the timeline. Yeah, apparently they just disappeared off the face of the earth and were never seen again. And the Warder's return is the return of the sole surviving, last standing Warder. Again, what happened to the Warders? Where did they go? Do you guys have any idea what might have happened to them? Leave a comment down below and let me know what you think happened. But I honestly have no idea what happened, because they were just tasked with taming the dragons. Were they just unsuccessful? Were they successful but wiped out in the process? I don't know. It's very confusing, but hey, we'll just go with it. So, the Warder's Return brings about one of the game, in-game mini-games, so to speak, or game styles that was introduced during the introduction of the Dragon's Call game in Paladins. So it was basically a limited edition, limited time only game where basically you grabbed a powerful orb from the center of the map and basically threw it into the enemy's base. No, brought it back to your base. Sorry, it's been a while. So basically that gameplay was one of my favorites during the game, and I'm very upset that was only a limited time only. Now, the Dragon's Call within the history of Paladins is actually a beacon that was once used to mobilize the Warders. Genos actually lights it at this point in time. Again, no explanation as to why Genos was there, why he's lighting it, but yeah, Genos lights this eternal pyre, this flame, the Dragon's Call. Both the Resistance and the Magistrate are drawn to this massive power of the Warder's Relic, which I'm assuming is some sort of relic that is possessed or held within the Dragon's Call. Now, it explains that there is a vault that is sealed, and both sides attempt to open it by passing the Warder's key into the vault in order to unlock it. This is how the game was played. Basically, you grab the orb, which is the Warder's key, pass it into your base, which was the vault, and the winning side would be the team who basically did it more times, or did it a specific number of times before the other team was able to, thus unlocking the vault, which was allowing them to grab the Warder's relics. The Resistance emerged victorious from the scuffle, securing the Warder's relics for themselves. These were powerful gauntlets that were actually once wielded by the Warders themselves. Now, at this time, it again just adds in a little snippet and just decides to tell us, hey, Furia and Moji joined the Resistance at this time and sail back with them on their ship. Well, how did they join? Did they enter into the battle? It could have been that Furia and Moji saw the Warder's Call and, sided with the Resistance, believing in their cause more than that of the Magistrate. Nope, just tells us, Moji and them were just there, and they just jumped on their ship and sailed back with them. Okay. Not really information specific, but, we'll go with it. However, on their way back, right, their victory was quite short-lived. From the seas, the Resistance was met by Pirate Admiral Judd Roberts of the Eight Oceans. He attacks the Resistance and claims the gauntlets for himself, sending the Resistance fleeing back for port. This sparked the gauntlets to life, as the relics only choose the most worthy of wielders to control their power. This awakens the Elder Dragon, who is enraged and seeks out to reclaim the gauntlets from the unworthy Admiral Roberts. Judd Roberts then cannot withstand the attack of this dragon, and he with his ship is sunk into the depths of the ocean. However, he is not lost. Judd Roberts is brought back, but resurrected with great abyssal power, and is reborn as Dredge. Dredge then pursues after the lost prize and attempts to reclaim the gauntlets. So obviously the dragon then took them back to a worthy opponent, or just took to land. It doesn't really stay, but basically Dredge now basically sails after him, this undead pirate of the 8 seas. He is successful in the Marauder's port, where he reclaims the artifacts. However, a futile attempt, as Dredge then encounters Imani, the last of the warders. Imani then manages to equip her relics and summons the Elder Dragon. At this point, I'm assuming she either drives Dredge back into the 8 seas or defeats him entirely. It does not say. It simply jumps to the next section within or milestone within the timeline. But from what it sounds like is that basically, the dragon took the gauntlets to Imani. However, Dredge was able to reclaim them in the process, but a futile effort since Imani was able to fight back, taking her gauntlets and fighting him, Dredge, off. Alrighty guys, and up next we have the next milestone in this journey, which is the fight of the Shattered Desert. Now, obviously, the Shattered Desert will be explained a little more in the next milestone, but for now, let's just go over this one. So, basically, the Paladins all gathered together to make a strategy and find out where they wanted to go next. So, Valero was trying to decide on what their next heading was. Imani appeared to assist them with this, as well as Genos, the Descended God. Basically, after a bit of discussion, they decided that the next course was to actually march on the Shattered Desert, as they believed that there was something there that would help them achieve victory in the civil war that was breaking out throughout the realm. Now, obviously, they decided to march upon this desert. Now, for a bit of background, the Shattered Desert is basically the place where which the moon fell. So the moon actually fell to the earth, to the realm. So we'll go over that a bit more in the next milestone. Right, so they find themselves out there in the Shattered Desert on this holy ground in a place filled with stone fox statues and crescent moons. And this is actually where they discover what they believe to be some unknown portal of great power. But to their surprise, they're not alone. The Magistrate in its full force appear on the horizon, and with such vast numbers and strength and power, the Magistrate are actually certain of a victory at this point. Luckily for them, this was no mere portal, but actually a rift. For the portal vanished, and in place stood a large man, a man possessing technology unseen by that of any within the realm. This was Atlas, right? So obviously we've known Atlas, who came with one of the addition characters to the game, not one of the base characters, but this is where he enters the storyline. He's returned from the future to actually save the realm, and he actually reveals to Valera the future of the realm, conveying the importance of stopping the Magistrate from reaching the Shattered Desert with the moon shards that are actually within it. Yeah, as these moon shards contain a massive darkness, but like I said, we'll go over that in the next milestone. If the Magistrate are able to reach these moon shards, though, they will unleash the darkness trapped within them, which will destroy the realm completely. Atlas then agrees to help, but first they need to find help. This is where we move on to the next milestone, where we actually get a bit of a backstory. This is the Shattered Moon, the Shattered Goddess returns. So it starts a bit further back in the original timeline, where the Magistrate actually finds the moon shards within the Shattered Desert, and that's where that was the original. That was Atlas's timeline. All right, but to give a bit of backstory first, before we get into that, before the moon was destroyed, Io would watch over the realm from the moon, right? But then the darkness struck, smothering her light. The moon shattered and the shards fell to the realm, killing everything they touched as they landed and touched the earth, destroying forests and land. However, this created the Shattered Desert, though. However, the people that remained there built up a city known as the Bazaar. These people worship the goddess for her protection, And in the centuries after the shattering of the moon, Io remained. However, she remained hidden within the shadows, her fox being her only companion throughout the centuries. Corvus, however, led the magistrates in to get these shattered shards of the moon to gain their power, hoping it would help them gain the power to beat the resistance. The people of the bazaar tried to protect these pieces, but they didn't stand a chance, right? So the magistrate was able to easily take them and carry on. Io returned to protect her people, standing against the magistrate and actually injuring Corvus in battle. Now, that part was actually from the newer timeline. See, I don't like how these laws kind of mix everything together. In the original timeline, they were successful in getting their shards. In the new timeline, where Athos returns, basically Io was able to successfully defend the bazaar and actually severely injured Corvus in their battle. Alright, so this brings us to the last of the important timelines within the history of Paladins. I know this is a bit of a long video, guys, but bear with me, we're almost there. This is the summoning of Ram. So basically this starts off with Corvus, like I said, the son of the Grand Magister Khan, was exposed to things that were unseen by most, horrible things from within the abyss. Alright, this led to a heavy involvement in such things. He became an expert on abyssal power, and his first encounter was actually at the portal in the town of Ceres when it was destroyed. If you guys remember back in the history line, the destruction of the village of Ceres. It is actually not known how he survived this massive explosion, but he did. From there, his fascination only grew. He became almost obsessed with the abyss itself, trying to find out more he could about it. Now, originally, like I said, Corvus did retrieve the moon shards, releasing the darkness and dooming the realm. However, with the return of Atlas, Jen was convinced to recruit Io to the cause, obviously to aid the resistance. And now Corvus terrorized the people of the bazaar, as we mentioned before, and he was defeated by Io, being seriously injured in battle. This made him desperate, looking for power to defeat the resistance, obviously not taking his loss very well. Ceres then appeared to Corvus, offering him an immense power from the abyss. Now, it's not saying where she came from, if she just appeared out of a wall or what, but yeah. Ceres then tricked Corvus into actually opening a portal to summon abyssal power. Ram was then actually summoned into the realm. This powerful force was unleashed upon the realm. Obviously, this was not great, because Ram ain't going to be, controlled by no man. So yeah, Ram was released to terrorize the realm. For his acts, his reputation was ruined. Corvus was exiled by the magistrate, now being even more obsessed with controlling the abyss. Right? Strix and Tyra, obviously being on opposite sides, it's come together despite their differences, and agree to monitor Corvus with the same goal in mind. After all, they worked together in the past as sentinels. So this is where we actually find out that, yeah, Strix and Tyra were sentinels, and if I'm not mistaken, Buck was a sentinel as well, but there's not much on it. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you very much for watching and sticking with me. If you guys are still here at the end of this video, please give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Remember, smash the subscribe button and join the pack. If you don't want to miss future videos, hit the bell, turn it on so you get notified when I post. And then, guys, if you want to see more videos like this, leave a comment down below to tell me you want to hear about more of the history of Paladins, maybe more of the characters, more of how they fit together, or what each individual character's storyline is, and I'll be happy to go into that. But for me today, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. We'll be right back.